All right, for your next assignment, you are going to be using a part of your name to be the subject for a drawing that's done in kind of graffiti style. So you can use your first, middle, last name, nickname. It's your choice for this assignment. What you have to look at for references would be the direction sheet that have finished names on them, or you have these packets that have all these different examples of bubble letters or graffiti style letters. So these packets are here for you to pick up to use for ideas, or you can draw your own name however you want to go about doing this. So some helpful things to get started. I'm going to draw on a whiteboard so I can erase quickly and easily. What you can use is plain white paper that's also provided, or you could practice with a whiteboard as well to get confident before you start to draw. So the first thing that you should do when you're doing lettering is give yourself some guidelines to know that your letters are going to touch the top and bottom of these lines. And I want to include area for background around my name. So those two lines I just drew represent where the top of my letters touch and the bottom of my letters touch. Then the next thing you need to do is figure out how many letters long your name is that you're going to be working with. So if I'm doing my first name is Megan. I need to count how many letters are in the name that I'm going to draw and figure out where the center is going to be. So I like to kind of mark where the center of my page is, and then I have to figure out where my middle letter is placed. So my middle letter is the G. So I know that my G is going to go right in the middle of my paper. If you're a 4-letter name or an even number name, for example, Josh has an even number. So I know that when I divide that in half, the O and the H are going to be right at the center. So I know which letter is my center. So then the next thing I would do is draw in my regular handwriting my first letter and my last letter. And now I know that I have to fit my in-between letters around that. So that's the first thing I do when I start to do lettering, is figure out which letter's in the middle, do my first letter, my last letter, and the in-between ones, and you should have things evenly spaced. The most common mistake that students do when they're trying to do lettering is they draw their first one too big, and then they can fit their next one in, and then the next thing they realize is I'm running out of room, so my letters start to get smaller and they start to get squished at the backside. That's not going to look very good, so that's why I'm teaching you strategies on how to center and get things to fit. So this name that you're going to be drawing in graffiti style is going to be used in your first Photoshop assignment. You're going to be drawing it in black and white or on white paper with Sharpie between now and fall break, so that after fall break I'm going to scan this drawing, put it in the computer, and you're going to use your own drawing for your first Photoshop assignment, which will be to learn how to put color into a black and white image on the computer. So that's why we're doing this step. Okay, so once I've got my regular handwriting in, now I'm going to look at this handout to help me turn these letters into graffiti style. If you notice these examples, one letter touches the next letter or they overlap, and that's consistent with graffiti style. So I'm going to keep that in mind as I'm drawing. So I'm going to look at this handout. And if I'm going to turn my letter M into a shape, I'm going to look at this sample here, and I'm going to start to draw around my letters that were drawn in my regular handwriting. That's just a guideline to help me know where to start the placement of my edges. So I can change this as much as I want. It doesn't have to be an exact copy of what's printed. I can use my own ideas, but I'm going to kind of work with this as a guide. So when I finish, I can erase my regular handwriting from the center, and what I'm left with is a shape. This would give me enough area in the computer to be able to click in there and place a color on the computer screen. So now I'm going to move over to my letter E. I want my E to touch my letter M. So I'm going to make sure they connect kind of at the corners, or the E goes behind the letter M a little bit. Kind of a loopy top here. And I'm just going around my regular handwriting, kind of making these letters stylized on the end. And I would do the same thing with my letter G right here. I'm going to touch behind my letter E. I'm staying within those printed guidelines that I drew before I wrote my name. And then I can erase my letters on the inside. Now I've got an A. So this example has a lowercase a, so I'm going to switch this to the lowercase a. Got kind of the bubbly top. It's going to touch my G. And then I'm going to erase that piece. Now I've got my letter N. So I'm going to look at my handout here, and I'm going to draw similar lines around this edge. And then I'll erase my handwriting. Okay. So now I've got my name drawn in bubble letters. Now I can go back and erase these guidelines. I don't need any more. Alright, the directions say that your name should be drawn to fill the whole space of the page. And if you notice, a lot of these examples, these letters had drop shadows around the edge or an outline around the whole word. So now I'm going to go back in and add my drop shadows. In the computer, any place you've got a designated area with a line, you can add color on the computer. So this edge that I'm drawing, going to turn my letters to make them look a little more 3D. Okay, so in the computer I could click inside this space to make it one color and the top of my letter to be one color. So another space that you could draw is kind of an outline around all the name, because in the computer you can click in these areas and add that color. So now I'm going to design the whole rest of my background. The directions say that you need to add lines, shapes, objects as setting, or patterns in the background to help fill up the space. So this is where you can draw what interests you, hobbies you have, sports you play. Keep everything school appropriate, whatever you decide to add. So maybe because I'm an art teacher, I might draw some paint splatters. I might draw in here paintbrush. That might have some paint coming off of it. So the idea is that I am starting to fill up the white background space with other areas that you're going to have to place color in. Maybe up here on the top edge, maybe I draw in a pencil. And maybe that's connected to some sort of line that I would then be filling in with color in the computer. Okay, so I still have a lot more white space. Oh, I dropped my camera. So now I'm going to kind of look at my white areas and what I have left. Oh my goodness, where's the camera stand? And now I'm basically just going to add in other shapes to kind of fill my space. I'm really just thinking about what pieces can I click on to put color in this area when I'm on the computer. So, I want you to have fun with this. I want you to draw things that interest you so that you want to put the color on there when we're in Photoshop. If you need to draw on a whiteboard first to practice, I've got whiteboard markers available. But then what you're going to be switching to is plain white paper and a regular pencil to begin with, and then you'll be outlining with Sharpie, so it is just black and white.